share with you something I really, really enjoy doing for so long. I've become a member of co-ops. I was probably 13 years old, and I'm a certified co-op developer, member of Co-op Zone in Canada. So I've been supporting co-op development and social enterprise in my little neck of the woods, Ottawa, and rural Ontario, eastern, north, and south of Ontario, but also throughout Canada and in a few countries in the world. And I will focus on Ontario because that's where I learn, that's where I I practice most of the time, and that's why that's where also we share different expertise, share stories, share lesson learned from different co-op stories here and there. So just to set up the stage, because I think some people come from different places in the US and Canada, I'm proposing my talk will be split in 3 different components, a little bit of history. I will share with you, I think, powerful example as a practitioner, very concrete, and also some of the content I found on different websites. So I wrote the link there, so don't feel free to, if you want to read more, you can visit those sources. And finally, after those examples, because if I'm saying the co-ops really support rural development and revitalize rural communities in Ontario, I discovered throughout those experiences and those examples key successful elements to make those co-ops stronger, but also to make them an active, strong players in those rural communities and be part of the solution, being part of creating wealth in the communities. So a bit of history, and I want to invite you to look at the picture first, because that little building, white building, it will be the first building of one of the co-op. I will speak to you a bit later. I won't say the name right now, but remember that little picture. Very small, no windows, and it was in St. Albert in Ontario, Prescott Russell area. You know, the first co-op to achieve stability in Canada were the co-ops created by farmers. By the 1900s, we saw in Ontario and also in Quebec 1,200 creameries. And you know what? Because you know why those farmers were getting together to really create those co-ops? It's because they were really working so hard to establish their farm, to harvest, to buy the seeds and everything. So they were getting some loans to do some of that work. But if one year they didn't have a good year, a good harvest, they were not able to repay the loan. And many of them had got their land seized and they lost quite a lot in that process. So they really get together. Their common need was to really get together, get organized, start something, transform our milk. Let's be together to buy some inputs and do it collectively without owning some money to somebody else who can pull the plug anytime. So we can see since the turn of the 20th century, quite many creameries have been created at the beginning of that century. And it was almost at the same time that the credit union movement has been created in North America with Alphonse Desjardins in Lévis, Quebec, but it was the one in Ontario really start right after the Lévis, Quebec. So people in Ontario have been participating in co-ops for 150 years and a bit more. And for the Francophone, you can see I have an accent, so and Julien as well. We are Francophone. Let me tell you, as a minority and a majority context, we had no choice to get together. So co-ops has been part of our DNA. From my ancestor got it, my great-grandfather, my grandfather, my grandmother, you know, and it's been all the way through and today, Francophone and Anglophone and new immigrants also embrace the co-ops as a really good tool to build wealth in the community. But traditionally, if we look at where it comes from, I give you the example of the creamery. It was across the agricultural sector. The co-op got very, very strong and very powerful. And it was really to market, like I said, together and also get some supply, either tools or seed and any other things. But after that, you know, co-ops have been spread in many sectors of activity, like all over the world. It's like that. We're close to what, 800 million or close to 1 billion people, members of co-op throughout the world. So it's been all over in many sectors of activity, and we see that as well right now in Ontario. So the oldest co-op in the province was created in 1913. And just to piggyback on what I just said about the agricultural sector for the marketing and business supply, look, I just had something I found on a website of agricultural co-op in Eastern Township here in Ontario, and they're still saying the same thing. When we created the first one 150 years ago, it was to get a powerful marketing group and also to be able to buy supply. But look, they still support farming, they still supply farm equipment, they're still helping with marketing. So still today, the co-ops we created 150 years ago until today are providing the same kind of services and to their members, because the need is still there, and that's why those co-ops in our rural Ontario are very, very strong. And the co-op movement in rural Canada just spread. Yes, we saw many agricultural co-op, consumer producers, but we saw some housing co-op, daycare co-op, and all of the other sector of activity throughout the country. So we all know, if we are involved in the co-op movement, we all know co-op is a different way of doing business. We have the non-profit, we have the for-profit. It's the same thing in Canada. But all co-ops have been created to answer a need, the need of its member or the need of its community. And it's really why we're saying we're doing business differently. Yes, we will generate revenue, we will generate surplus, and we will reinvest and give back to our member, but we are socially responsible business. From day one, co-op, we're looking at social, economic, and also the environmental. We're not saying that way 150 years ago, but people were really concerned about building strong community 150 years ago and still today in the co-op movement. We all know all of those types of co-ops, consumer, worker, producer. And, you know, in some sector of activity, we don't see that much innovation. But in co-ops, no matter if it's a formula, it exists for so long in our communities, in rural Canada, but then also in urban Canada and throughout the world, we saw innovation. Many other kind of form, hybrid, respecting the Co-op Act, no matter which country we are involved, but also we saw social co-op has been created. Housing co-op has been there for quite a while. Retail and purchasing, so having two mandates under the same roof, and hybrid worker and consumer co-op. So innovation is happening, not only in urban context, in rural communities as well. You know, they really connect the need in their community and build up from there. And one I didn't write in that slide, and I saw that in Quebec, and I'm working in rural Ottawa right now, where people are looking to create a multi-stakeholder co-op in rural tourist development. So people are really getting the connection between who they are, their capacity, the need, the market, the community, and the opportunities to do something good, and connecting all that to do business differently. And those kind of synergy in rural Ontario, really, we see different villages changing because it's really rebuilding and revitalizing those communities. We can go all the way to big ones. Some of you probably know this one, Ocean Spray. It's been created in 1930, so it's not the first one. The first one was 1913, but 75 years ago, owned by 800 cranberry growers, 2,000 employees, 1.4 billion gross sales. We have also the Cooperative, and by the way, this one is in U.S. and Canada. The co-op, one co-op, the largest Canadian multi-product insurance company, started by the farmers in Saskatchewan. Look where they are right now. They have 37 co-op organizations in Canada. It's owned by 37 co-op organizations in Canada. It provides services throughout the country. They have 5.7 billion assets. And it's an amazing structure providing not only insurance to co-op, to any individual, private business, corporation, but also the nonprofit sector and the co-op sector. And they really, really see insurance in a different way, and they're really trying to connect and to support the whole society through their own mandate to provide insurance. They also create a foundation to find a way to support co-op development and give back to the community with the surplus they generate. So it's really happening, very small, very big, but no matter what, some really rural co-op are changing the world. I will give you 3 examples. The first one is Moonbeam Food Co-op. Julien is involved with the Conseil de la Coopération de l'Ontario with his colleague Caroline, who organized this training, those webinars, and they've been quite involved in that Moonbeam Food Co-op. North of Ontario, very, very rural, small village. It's a consumer co-op. Imagine a village, 1,000 people living there. Many are elderly, some small families, some kids. Close to Kapuskasing. Kapuskasing is a town, so you have to drive 45 minutes drive to get there. And you know what? In Kapuskasing, they have a big Walmart. So it was very interesting to anyone to get access to products that seems cheaper. And people were not concerned that much to drive that distance. But when you are living in a village and you like that country living style, and you look at your village and you lost different services already, the post office and stuff like that, and one day you find out that the only grocery will probably close shop because there's no succession and no one to buy and maintain that business. And there's not much local business in that village. So people are looking at that and saying, our village is dying. We have to do something. People woke up. They were all driving to get to Kapuskasing to buy products, not supporting their local business. So that local business was not making that much money anymore, but having the best product and also at the end of their the business before they close and sell their assets. So at one point, people got together and say, you know what? People in that community, buy back grocery from the individual, the owner who owned that place. We will transform it as a co-op. We will own our grocery. We will collectively as members decide to invest in it. So they mobilize, the issue shared, and they mobilize 650 members, raise over than $300,000, mobilize also l'Alliance des Caisses, le Conseil de la Coopération, another credit union, local by Kapuskasing, and they mobilize all the money to buy the place, to maintain the job. And you know what? A year and a half and 2 years later, it was a real tool to revitalize that village because they create more jobs. They bought the products people want, so people, instead of driving to Kapuskasing and pollute with their car to get there, they buy locally. So, you know, they get the stuff they want, they buy it as a good price, they have no intermediary because they are the owner of the co-op, and it's a win-win. Just that small co-op in that small village changed the way Moonbeam has been looked by the people who live there, but also by the neighbors, the village close by, and also the big town close by. Very good way to revitalize rural. And that happened just a few years ago. When we look, they succeed in 2012 to mobilize the money to buy. And I wrote save jobs. They did more than that. They didn't only save the jobs of their brothers, cousins, because everybody know each other in a small village, but they also create new jobs and they create new service and products in that grocery because members were requesting it, and now instead of driving, they're buying it there. I will share with you another story. It's a rough and tough story, but the ending is very good. It's a consumer co-op in also rural Ontario. It was a co-op called Agri-S. I was not able to find the logo, the real logo of Agri-S like it was in 2000 at that time. Agri-S was a co-op created like 70 years ago by farmers from 9 different villages. They create 2 mills, and they bought the third one. They had 9 hardware store. They had some plant to sell all the chemicals for the land and everything, like many agricultural co-ops. Plus creating under 20 jobs, direct jobs in the co-op throughout those 9 different villages and capacity, and other jobs, because those co-ops buy locally other services. So they were maintaining probably another 200 jobs in those villages. And the thing is, the board at one point lost track of what's going on with the financial of the co-op. They went almost bankrupt. They had a bad feeling. During 6 months, they didn't see the financial. They didn't know how bad was the situation, and they were losing money in different ways. They didn't know what was happening, and they were not able to know the real story. One guy on the board died. The farmers met, and suddenly they were vulnerable. They had a conversation, and they raised the issue saying, holy crap, we don't know what's going on with our co-op. Maybe it's dying. Maybe it's going through a very difficult period. We don't know. We don't see the financial, and we know something is wrong. So I got on board. I was working at CCO, the same place Julien works. I left CCO to go and work with them. I didn't know anything about agricultural co-op. I knew a lot about farmers. I was working with farmers for years. And I got the board on board. I hired 3 other experts, one from the mill, one for all the fertilizer and stuff like that, and one for the hardware to work with me. I hired also a CEO, CFO, as chief financial officer. I didn't know what kind of people they were before, but I discovered how great they could be if they're very good, efficient people. And all together, with the 120 people working there and the board, we tried to unveil what was the key issue and find the solution. We discovered we had more debt than equity. Some of you are probably hearing me and saying, well, if you have more debt than equity, you are bankrupt. So when we woke up and look at that, we did a business plan and a restructuration plan, and we proved to our bank, at that point it was Royal Bank, then doing business differently. So I really work with my professional, and we really work, like, in my case, it was 100 hours a week, and many others work quite a lot. And during 6 months, we succeed to prove that we were able to make over than $700,000 profit, surplus, after everything is paid. So doing business differently or doing good business, it was still viable to maintain that, but it was too late. We had too much debt, and there was no way to repay those debts in a very short period of time. So we went under the protection, under the court, to protect the assets, and during a year, I decided to continue to work with the company, it was Pricewaterhouse, to maintain the activities of the co-op and to maintain as many jobs as possible. And we succeed to approach La Fédérée, a major co-op involved in the agricultural, who saw the potential, who believed the numbers we were sharing with them, and they decided to buy back the Agri-S. So Agri-S became not a co-op at that time, but a center of the co-op, Agri-S Center. With the board at that time, they learn, they teach, they reinforce the capacity of all of those board members, plus key manager. They also hired another very manager of agricultural co-op, and they recapitalize the co-op, that center. So they repay, and they made that center so viable. Then the Agri-S Center became a co-op, and for many years, it was the last 5, 6, 7 years, it was so good. Then now La Fédérée, because the co-op Agri-S is member of La Fédérée, like with Uniforce Co-op and Frontière Co-op, they decide to amalgamate to create a stronger co-op for all Western Quebec and Eastern Ontario. So we create a co-op, no boundaries of between 2 provinces. That co-op work with that new co-op work with all the producers. But the thing is, that story, let me tell you, a lot of lessons learned. And at the same time, when we were in the hole, really deep, deep in the hole. We saw the solidarity. People got together, all the members and non-members. They wanted to come to annual meeting and general assembly just to look at solution and find solution, not only to maintain jobs, but to maintain that service, that proximity services in those communities. So when I'm saying we are in rural Ontario for 150 years and we are key players, yes, if we don't do things correctly, we can lose what has been built. It took years and years to build. And Agri Co-op, if we wouldn't wake up at the time the board member woke up and do the right thing, that kind of a very business plan oriented approach and see all the results and build on the results, we wouldn't save that asset. And a lot of producers, when you say, we are collectively we kill the co-op because we're not aware or awake enough to do the right thing at the right time. They were crying, those farmers, at one point, because they were thinking about their fathers and mothers and grandfathers and all of those people who built up those co-ops. Today, they're so proud, and that co-op continues to be a revitalization player in many villages in east of Ontario and west of Quebec. The last example I'll give you, it's I discovered that co-op. I was really young. I like cheese, and that's the best cheese in the world. I know we can disagree. If you are in your area, you have another co-op doing cheese, they probably make the best, but this one is the best of the best. It's a producer co-op, and they've been through a lot since their creation, and I will share a bit of their history and also some key elements how they succeed to overcome some of their issues. And all the Saint-Adar from day one have become that kind of a local player. Everyone wants to be involved because they really reinvest a lot in their community. It's a producer co-op. It's the only one, that those 1,200 creameries in Ontario is the only ones who survive in Eastern Ontario. Most of all the other ones have been closed shop for different reasons, the quota and different other regulation. But this one stay on track and continue to improve their capacity, and they're still alive today. We lost track of 45 years of their history because, let's say, farmers were busy to farm and also meetings with the co-op, so they didn't have time to write too much the minutes, and the books have been lost during that period of time. But we know at one point that co-op members got together because they had the need to bring their milk somewhere and transform their milk and produce good cheese with their milk, because it was hard to be a producer, a farmer and producing milk if you had no place to really sell your milk. And the system was not organized at that time. So they decided, we will create a co-op, we'll buy that co-op will buy the milk from their members. So they really kept the number of members very small, and they associate the number of liters of milk that each producer are making, and the same capacity of liters the co-op can transform. So they always maintain that logic, and we have enough member to bring enough milk to the co-op to really produce and generate surplus and everything. So they create that co-op with all their effort and soul, but they sold it. We don't know why, but they sold it. But they discovered they were missing that piece of having that sustainable piece to transform and produce something with their milk. So they bought it back in 1934 for $8,500. It was very small, by the way, just 1 acre. One small building, the little white building I told you to look at, and one of the first slides, it was very small, no windows, and a bit of equipment, but not that good. They renew everything. In 1950, Saint-Albert inaugurates a brand new building, and they really manufacture butter and cheese. And at that time, it was called modernized plant. So they were more. They had a few equipment, and they were really doing a great job and really penetrating the market, selling their product mainly regionally, locally and regionally. They were not going too far. But you know what? 5 generations of dairy producer and artisan have been involved to develop and maintain that co-op tradition. And from 1994 to now, they have hundreds of thousands of visitors who come to St. Albert's shop. They create a shop locally, and it's really, in French, we have a saying, vache à lait. It's the place where they make the more profit to have a store locally. And also it brings people in St. Albert who will also support the local economy. They have 2,000 point of sales throughout Western Quebec and Eastern Ontario who carry their cheese. They, at one point, because they heard this urban people saying, your cheese is so good, and yes, we can buy it from a few groceries, not everywhere, but a few groceries at that time. But they said, open a shop in the city. So after many years, they decided to open a second shop in Orleans, in Ottawa, and shut out. It worked. They were open for a few years, but it was not very good business at that time. Not they were managing it very well, but it was an area where they started that shop. It was an area where new houses were getting built, and probably they opened the shop too early for that neighborhood. So they had to close at one point. They purchased also another cheese factory in Mirabel in the north of Quebec. So it needs another store. They know store when we bring good cheese, and people have a good experience when they go in those stores and they see other products related to the cheese. It's a win-win. And they got so many awards since they're building and increasing their capacity and learning and hiring the right people. And you know what? The straight line between all of those years, it was from 1994, since I started CCO, 1995, CCO, and after that I continue, we helped them to do strategic planning. Before that, they didn't have any strategic planning. They were not able to position themselves and think it through where they would like to be, and think about their sales route and where they would like to go, and how they could support locally the economy. And they, with the strategic planning, they really define some targets. And you saw with good governance, great staff, a good engagement and rooted in their community, in their region, but with the right tool, good budget, good strategic planning, good business planning, good marketing planning, all connected with good values. Say that, it's really good values. It really had an impact. In 2012, they had under 25 employees. Look at that. Look at that. It was like probably our 15th strategic planning. It was a week or two after the strategic planning. We were really having the wind in the back. February 3rd, 2013, St. Albert Cheese Co-op was completely destroyed by a devastating fire. No matter if you're well covered by the insurance, because right away, that night, the board had a meeting for a few weeks, board had a meeting almost every day, and they look at the insurance. Insurance was not covering everything, and they had issue with some component of the money they would get. But they look at that as opportunities. They connect with other producers and co-ops. And during that period of time of rebuilding, they had to move fast. They didn't want to lose all their market. They connected, and in solidarity, they got other people to produce the St. Albert Cheese Co-op cheese and sell it in the market. They slow down the production, involving others, not at their side, but others. But we were able to see the brand on the market. In 2014, a year later, look at the building. It's huge. There is not only a store now, there's a restaurant, great capacity for all the stuff, and also kind of a museum and a place where people could walk through and see all the different steps how to create co-op. So co-op was ready to mark its 120th anniversary. And it emerged from its ashes stronger than ever. Why? Because the people got together. People reinvest in their co-op. People got a good governance. They were engaged in their community. They mobilized the right partner. They really, and you know what, when we're saying with modern facilities, that was the cheese factory everyone were dreaming since the first strategic planning. I know no one was dreaming about the fire, but the next day of the fire, because of that strength power, getting together and say, let's do the co-op we dreamed for so many years. And they increase their production capacity. Now on, they continue to produce their best cheddar, and they continue to receive awards. And, you know, at the end of the day, when we look at those 3 examples, and also the history, what is amazing, and I will say a few elements I'll just name here and there in the presentation. Those co-ops are anchored in their community. They are key players. They re-engage in their community. If I think at the St. Albert Cheese Factory, 20 years ago, they decided to create, because we didn't have a lot of entertainment in the rural, they decided to create a major festival. Now it's a major festival in the festival industry in Ontario. And, you know, maybe, I think it's 30 to 40,000 people who come to that festival. Locally, everyone is there. And widely, people also from urban are coming to that festival. But also, imagine, you have so many people coming and having fun, eating cheese, and looking at great shows and everything, but those people also reinvesting in the local economy. The members' engagement in every story I shared with you, and if you have a lot or not that much experience in co-op development, you know this is a key element. The engagement, the involvement. We need to be engaged. We need to have the will and the trust that we can do everything together, no matter when everything goes well or if something goes wrong, we can still overcome those challenges and find a way, find the right solution. The strong governance, not only to have a governance and democratic process and to make decisions together and everything, strong governance. It's not one person speaking for everyone and speaking all the time. It's really collectively well managed together and knowing our roles and responsibilities. Let me tell you, Agri-S, I saw many farmers around the table when I was telling them, you can't plead ignorance. You can't say you didn't know. You have to take your responsibility and no matter what, ask. And of course, you have the right information and play your role. You are fiduciary of that co-op when you sit on those boards and you present a member on a daily basis or between meetings. So you have to do your job. And if everyone is doing their job in a co-op, it's a stronger co-op. Strategic, not only planning, strategic business planning. And in some sectors of activity, it's really critical. A great budget. We're saying a great budget because sometimes budget could be very dry, very arid. But a great budget means it's really a tool. We can follow our financial activity. And also, we could say, you know, all the other components of element. Capitalization, find a way to get the members not only pay their membership share, but also capitalize their co-op, reinvest in co-op, the membership share. St. Albert, they overcame so many issues by the capitalization by and for the member. The cooperation amongst co-op. When St. Albert burned, you know, others were around to really help them, and all of them are actively involved in that rural development. So let me tell you, co-ops in rural Canada, sometimes people don't know it's a co-op because we're not that good to promote ourselves as a co-op, but they know the activity we're doing and the impact. And I found that station in the final analysis, those who do not cooperate always end up destroying themselves, making way for others who know how to understand and cooperate with each other. Life seems to be much less a competitive struggle for survival than a real triumph of cooperation and creativity. So let's work together and rural will get better. That's it.
Thank you. Merci, Ethel, for the great presentation. So now we have some time for questions. So if you have a question in the attendance, you can use the chat box that's on your screen. So you should be able to see that on the side in that banner, that GoToMeeting banner. So we'll be able to take some questions. Please type them in, and we'll respond as they come in. So you have to use the chat box to ask questions. Everybody's muted. Yes.
How do you go about generating interest in starting a co-op from zero? Thank you, Dustin, for the question. Honestly, and I live in a rural for 23 years in Eastern Ontario, but also now I'm another part of rural. And you know what? When we start a co-op, we have to find the people who have the common need, and we start with small groups. So when we were a group of people in my region who wanted a cafe. We have no little cafe. We have the Tim Horton. We have to drive 30 to 40 minutes drive. That's a commercial coffee place, and it's kind of a Dunkin' Donuts in the U.S. But no local place with good coffee. You know, why I would have to drive in the city to have a good espresso or stuff like that, and also being able to meet people. So we just had 8 or 9 people in that community who had the same need, and they get together and they create the founding group, and they really think it through. They got together, they really support each other, a few meetings, define the concept. And, you know, at that time, we didn't know it would become a co-op. We decided maybe some of us could start it and the other one will just be clients. But we decided we had so much fun dreaming, thinking and acting together to develop the concept. We decided it will be a collective enterprise, a co-op. And we incorporate that co-op. So now we are inviting people at the AGM, the founding AGM, to join as different members in the community. For sure, between the AGM, the founding AGM, and the work we did and the business plan, and we also document the co-op structure, and we consult in our community. Is it just a trip between the 8 of us? And if it's so, then we will visit each of us and get a good coffee at our neighbor. But no, it was many more people who had the same needs. And people say, if you create your cafe co-op, we will buy a membership share. And buying a membership share, they also commit to probably come, if the coffee is good for sure, at this place. And we had our first AGM not a long time ago. It was 2 weeks and a half. Room was packed. But it's always connected with the need. And it's always a few people at the beginning will probably dream. We need to train each other. In my group, we didn't ask any other trainer from the co-op sector to come and train us, because I've been experienced as a trainer and capacity builder like Julien and many others. But honestly, I took time to say we have to make sure we have the same view and we understand the same thing about what is a co-op. Not the dream of what is a co-op, but what is the real thing about a co-op, to manage it, how to make decisions together and stuff like that. People were well informed, well trained. They were well equipped to make their strategic decision at the right time, and they went through all the different steps faster than I thought because the need was so strong, and it's launched. So, and I saw that with the daycare co-op. Same thing. You don't need 50 families at the beginning to think about it. 2 or 3 families got together and say, we want to have a safe, secure, accessible daycare services. It ends up most of the time when the school doesn't want to start one, or a private sector doesn't want it start as a co-op in those communities. And sometimes most of those co-ops stay alive longer than the private sector. And there's some stats proving that. So Zoe wrote, great example of rational. Why it's important for developing co-ops and co-ops in transition to seek the support of co-op developers. He said right at the beginning that you were a certified co-op developer. What certification? Yes, the co-op zone in Canada do certification of co-op developers. And you go online. You have to become a member of co-op zone and look at all the you have to have a proof record, then you are well trained, well informed, and you have experience in co-op development, and you can become it's a bit more tricky than that, but it's feasible. But not every co-op developers are certified. Many of them are not, and they are great as well. If you learn what it is and you're involved in some co-ops and you know, I think the first co-op I've been involved in, never called that a co-op, but it was a collective. It was a daycare in my neighborhood in Vanier when I was 18 years old with one kid. No, 19 years old with one kid. Still young, but 19 years old with one kid. And we started something. We didn't know it was a co-op. We had an account at our credit union, but we didn't know it was a co-op. We created a nonprofit at that time, but it was really managed as a co-op with a board and everything. And it transformed later on as a co-op because its members want, the family involved in that nonprofit wanted them to be very actively involved in that structure. So, and you know, it's really happening. What are the questions? Are there many solidarity co-ops in rural areas? It depends on your definition of solidarity co-ops. By the way, it's caller number 4. I would like you to add some clarity about solidarity co-op, because solidarity co-op is Co-op Solidaire in Quebec, multi-stakeholder co-op in Ontario. If it's your definition of a solidarity co-op, multi-stakeholder co-op, we see more has been created in the last few years. You know, it's been quite new in our neck of the wood in Ontario because it's been integrated in the Act in the 1990s. So people don't know they have that capacity, but we create multi-stakeholder co-op when we do have different category of partners, not only individual, but categories of partners who will really benefit to join effort for a common need. For example, we had the co-op of Emploi, and it was the families. The workers were visible and mentally visible people. We had the families, the social worker, the agencies who provide services, and also the workers, members of that multi-stakeholder co-ops, and they were train and place people in employment and opportunities. And it was the connection of all those stakeholders that co-op was able to work well together. So we see more. For the tourism, I give you an example, because we could have different agencies, private enterprise, and individual interested in a sector of activity, for example, tourism. If they want to really not create like a subgroup working on a project, but they want a more sustainable approach, they will use the multi-stakeholder co-op. And they will really identify in the structure each stakeholder, each category of partners involved. And also, in the multi-stakeholder co-op, if one category needs more, not power, but more place in that co-op, we'll provide them more seats on the board, because we need more of that expertise around the decision-making in that co-op. So that formula is very flexible and very innovative as well. And it explores the solidarity among different structures working together on a common need. And I think it will happen more and more in rural areas, because instead of creating a new entity, to get 2 or 3 existing entities getting together and work amongst concrete and common needs, it will be the way, because we can't create again and again new entities in our community. In rural areas, it's impossible to think that way, and we have to work with the strengths in those communities to make things happen. What kind of business training awareness should one have before they start up? Well, Justin could be also a great person to answer this one, but the business training and awareness, most of the co-op movements throughout the world, they have some regional or local structure. It could be like in Ontario, we have the Conseil de la Coopération Ontario or Ontario Co-op Association. And the thing is, and we do have those resources in different communities. We can provide some coaching, mentorship, training, and also facilitate session or meetings in the community just to build awareness about that option. If people want to get together, address an issue, confirm a common need, and act together, the co-op formula is probably the most organized way. Back with ACT, you know, there's some co-op ACT in every part of the world to help us create strong co-ops in the different communities. And there's so many stories. And now if you don't have that kind of capacity local, close by, through the internet, there are so many webinars, training online, resources locally in the U.S. For example, there's the U.S. Social Economy Network, USEN. We've got many resources online. There's the Corporation Community Economic Development Corporation in the U.S. also. We've got a lot of co-op development expertise on board, and maybe in the nonprofit as well. You can find many co-op developers. And in Canada, we have a whole network across the border from each province and territories in French and English who provide, who mobilize co-ops and also provide different services. Because no matter what, one of the principles of co-ops, we don't need to build awareness and train ourselves just the few months or the few weeks before we start the co-op. One of the principles is to continue to train yourself. Co-ops are getting stronger and stronger than many private business. I think it's after 10 years, and Julien, you can correct me, I think 65% of the co-ops are still alive compared to 30%, something like that. And it's been documented by Stats Canada, looking at different business structures and the way they overcome issues and survive over time. One of the principles is train. We will have new people on the board. We have to train them. We will have new staff. We have to train them to make them understand they're not just only an employee somewhere on the planet, but they are an employee in a co-op. They are part of that family. They have a role to play, and you have to train at all levels, and it's critical, and it's one of the key elements. And I think think about the Agri-S. That board didn't have any training for quite a while at that time, and probably they lost track of the essential they need in hand to really manage well collectively their co-op, like the financial and a few other information to make sure they had the right information to guide the development of their co-op. And let me tell you, they had the lesson of their life. Now they really go to different conferences and they get, no matter if they went to 25 training, they're still going out there. The service, the different sectors of activity is always changing, and you need to be understanding not only the ABC, what is a co-op and how to manage correctly, it's critical, and we have to remind us the way we decide to manage those co-op, but also learn the new skills and the new component in the sector of activity, in which sector. I know St. Albert Cheese Factory, most of their managers are going to training on their sector of activity every year. And the board got training at the board every year, plus the strategic committee. So it's critical. And there's no reason now you can't have that access to that training. Let's take a look. There's membership class. Yes, you can use the word classes or categories. In Ontario, we use the term categories of partners. Someone who took the intro of Co-op Zone. Yes, they do have an advanced course. Just follow up. Now we have an ED at Co-op Zone. We didn't have a lot of resource for a year, but now we have an executive director, so don't hesitate to contact Co-op Zone. Co-op Zone also have many resources online. The Co-op Mutuelle Canada has got many resources online, and I forgot the one in the US, but ACE Educators, Julien, do you have a lot of resource online as well?
Yes, we do have some resources on ACE's website, and also the NCBA out of Washington, D.C. has some resources.
Perfect. So you can see, no matter where you are on the planet, there are resources, and you can reach out, and if there's none close by. I think I went through all the questions. Did you say anything else, Julien? And if you want to add anything to those questions, feel free.
Yes, so thank you, Ethel, once again for the presentation today. I think it was a great presentation, great questions as well. Thank you all for attending. Just an FYI, the next webinar in the series will be on November 12th at 10 Pacific, 12 Central, 1 Eastern, 2 Maritimes. The topic will be agritourism and outdoor adventure tourism. The login information is the same as today. If you're interested in joining that webinar, you can also sign up on the Eventbrite webpage. The presentation today will be available on ACE's website shortly. not today, but in the next couple days. So if you want to see that presentation again, feel free to do so. It'll be free. And the last thing I want to mention before we leave today is that ACE is organizing an institute in Montreal the last week of May 2019. So if you're interested in more professional development on co-ops or in the co-op sector, you'll be invited to join us in Montreal next year. Thank you again for attending, and have a great day, everybody.
Bye, everyone.